Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello friends, welcome to Chaitanya Studio at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. Myself, Dr. Vinodal Desai, working at Department of Computer Science and Technology, Sardar Patel University, Vallabh In today's sessions, we will talk about cascading style sheet. How do we use cascading style sheet? The purpose of using cascading style sheet and various ways to attach these CSS files in our present HTML document. So let's start and the style sheet, usage and its definitions. So what the CSS is? So generally CSS is a short form of cascading style sheet. It is used for adding an appearance or look into the existing web page that is developed using the HTML. It simply defines the appearance of a web page. Typical CSS file is saved with an extension of .css and contains a series of commands or rules. This CSS rules tells the HTML how to display. Some of the websites works together as HTML contains the structure of the website, CSS defines the appearance of the style of a website, and JavaScript defines the behavior of the website. Using CSS, you can save time and effort when designing your website. You can simply write one tag and apply it to the multiple occurrences across your site. HTML without CSS is like a piece of candy without a pretty wrapper. Without CSS, HTML elements typically flow from top to bottom of the page and position themselves to the left by default. With CSS help, we can create containers or divisions to better organize content anywhere in the document. There are various benefits available while using the CSS. First one is the faster page speed. Okay, using the CSS, the page loaded in the website much quickly than without CSS that the application or the website has been developed. Okay, CSS allows you to use one CSS rules and apply it to all occurrences of certain tag within an HTML document. Second one is better user experiences. So CSS not only makes the web page easy on eye, but also it provides user-friendly environment providing various formatting styles. When buttons and text are in logical places and well organized, user experience improves. It also allows us quicker development time. Then it also allows us easy formatting and changes. As we say and as we know that once we have a CSS file and it is applied on a multiple web pages, so whenever any change is required in a CSS file, we need to apply it in a single file and it will be reflected on multiple web pages across the website. So this way the formatting becomes very easy. Then the compatibility across devices. Okay, once the CSS is applicable, then the compatibility issue resolved, as today's all the websites are responsive web pages, and whether the tablet is there, whether a mobile is there or any laptop screen is there, the responsiveness of the application or website becomes efficient using the CSS. Now the pillar of CSS or at the heart of the CSS is its box model. The box model consisting of various objects in the form of, we can say, margin box, border box, padding box and content box. Content box is the area that the content lives in. This content can control the size of its parent, so is usually the most variably sized area. Padding box, it surrounds the content box and is the space created by the padding property. Because padding is inside the box, the background of the box will be visible in the space that it creates. If our box has overflow rules set, such as overflow :auto or overflow :scroll, the scroll bars will occupy this space too. Then border box is there. it surrounds the padding box and its space is occupied by the border value. The border box is this bounds of your box and the border edge is the limit of what you can visually see. The border type is used to visually frame an element. And at last the margin box is there. It is the space around your box defined by the margin rules on your box. So this the whole HTML page consisting of CSS. The CSS is also made up of its box model having 4 main components. At the center there will be a content and it is covered by the padding box, covered by border box, and at last covered by margin box. Now to write a CSS we need to know the syntax of writing a CSS. Okay, generally CSS is consisting of rules. CSS rules is there that we need to define to be applied on a web page. So generally the CSS rule contains a selectors and its key value pair. Okay, so that should be applied on a particular selectors. So how it is written, let's see for that. So generally the selectors are the HTML elements on which we want to apply a styling mechanism. Then after we can say there is a declaration block, as you can see, which contains attributes and values, or we can say property and values. So what kind of properties you want to apply through its we can say values on a web pages. A property may be a color, may be a font, anything for the particular element or selectors, and the appropriate corresponding values will be provided for that property to make a page or the content more attractive and effective. Okay, so this is what the syntax or CSS rules is. So CSS rule is simply a selectors with its property and value in simple words. Now before we proceed to attach a CSS to our HTML page, we need to know there are various kind of mechanisms to be applied on a CSS file. So how many ways can we use CSS, that we will see practically so that you can understand it easily. So let me to have one HTML page. Okay, simple structure is there. Within the we can say structures, let me to write that CSS practical demonstration. Okay, our title of the application is this. Okay, in a body we have suppose a one h3 header tag. Okay, then after let's have a paragraph. Okay, it is located at Ahmedabad. Okay, close the paragraph tag. So our body contains two main you can say content in the form of header 3 and paragraph. Okay. So now what we want to do, we want to format these two content, header 3 and paragraphs. For that we will write a CSS. So there are 3 types of CSS available. One is inline CSS, second one is internal CSS, and third one is external CSS. Inline CSS is the CSS which is written in a line of the element where on which you want to apply these effects. Suppose H3, on H3 if you want to apply, okay, then we can write a H3 and then after we will provide a attribute like style, and like this we will write, okay, style attribute is there for the particular element, and within this style attributes we have to provide the key value pair for the styling purpose. Okay, suppose if you want to have a font size, now font color, header color, then we can have this, okay, color colon. So the attribute will be written using this name of a specific attribute, then the value will be assigned using the colon sign. Okay, so you need to be very clear regarding that. Now let's test this whether it works or not. Our file is saved on the desktop, so we will directly run it. As you can see, the effect has been applied, welcome to BAOU, which is reflected through the can color. Okay, so this, if we will provide a styling mechanism using such kind of syntax, then it is known as inline CSS. Okay, that means CSS is applied in a same line of element where the element is defined. Okay, similarly, if you want to apply for the paragraph, then we can have a style attribute. Okay, st by style equal to, okay, font size colon 24 pixels. Let us refresh our page and see whether it is applicable. Yes, our font size is increased to 24 pixels. So, if such a way, if our page is built up and such syntax is available using the style attribute in a specific element, then we can say it is an inline CSS. This is known as inline CSS. Okay, a third types of CSS. CSS is not attached in the header, but it is directly within the HTML document in the same line. So that is known as, we can say, inline CSS. Now the second form of the CSS to be used is internal CSS. Okay, so internal CSS is simply a CSS that will be embedded in a header section using this style tag. So starting style tag, and we have to provide the ending style tag, and within that we have to define various selectors. Okay, and based on that we will provide the various effects on those we can say selectors or elements of the HTML documents. Suppose on a H3 we want to provide, now we will remove this inline CSS and the same would be applicable through the internal CSS. We will see how we can convert it into internal CSS. So simply what we can do is, we will define the, we can say, particular selectors in the form of, here we have a H3, so we will write H3, then after curly brackets and curly bracket again. So we want what kind of things? We need to provide the color effect. Okay, so just take it, provide color, okay, can. I am going to remove this inline CSS from the H3 header, and I have applied through the style tag, okay, in a header section. Now let me test whether the effect is there or not. The same effect is there. I am refreshing the page, as you can see. That means internal CSS is working fine. Okay, let me to change the color so that we can understand in a more better way. Okay, let me to make it light blue, whether it is supported or not. Yes, it is supported. We can say that color has changed from cyan to light blue, and it is displayed over there with a content. Again, I will remove this paragraph inline CSS by adding a selector P in an internal CSS, same way as I did with a H3 header. Okay, I will write whatever I want. Okay, suppose font size I want to keep is 24 pixels. Okay, let me to check it again. Yes, the effect is common. I have refreshed the page. There are various other properties. You can have a background color, SEKGR, background color. You can have a background color in terms of, let's have a can. It is applied or not, let's see. See, yes. So through this way we can have the CSS or internal CSS in our web page or HTML documents. The benefit of using CSS is that suppose somewhere in a body is certain other paragraph is there, okay, save this paragraph, and on the same paragraph we are interested in the same kind of effect that we have provided to previous paragraphs. Then if the such selectors is provided with this paragraph, then on the content of that paragraph the same effect will be available. That means on all the paragraphs we will have a common styling, okay. So it maintains or it keeps a uniformity through the formatting of a particular kind of content throughout the website on different web pages. So this is the power of CSS, okay. So we only need to define only once and it can be applicable across the websites on multiple web pages. So this is known as internal CSS, okay, by just using the style tag within the HTML document. Now the third types of CSS that we can use is the external CSS. For that we need to create an external file, okay, which will have a dot extension CSS, and within that we will define all the, we can say, selectors we are supposed to use, okay. Suppose this is what our selectors, so let us take it, just cut it from here, okay, and we have already created another CSS file, test.css, as you can see, and I have simply copied the selectors from the HTML file and pasting it over here like this, okay, nothing else. We only need to provide the selectors, then effect, that's it. Save the file with a specific name, whatever you want. We have provided it as a test.css, okay, simply. Now what we need to do, we have to link this external CSS to our HTML file, okay. So how do we link it? That is most important. So for that purpose, the syntax to link the external style sheet with our HTML document is, there is a link tag. So we have to use link tag, and it is having various attributes in terms of relation, which is having a value of style sheet. Then we have to provide the type of documents that we are linking. So it's a text/CSS document. Then media is optional, and the hypertext reference that we want to use, that means our CSS file path, okay. So these three attributes are mainly used. We can see in a link tag, that is a relation, then type, and then hyperreference. So we will use it. Okay, let's have a link, relation is equal to style sheet, relation is equal to style sheet, then type of document that we are going to link is a text file with a CSS content, so text/CSS, and third one is the hyperreference of our external, we can say, CSS file, where the CSS is. So generally we have to provide the path of our CSS file, okay. You have to provide the appropriate path, otherwise if the CSS effect will not be applicable or will not be available to your HTML document. Here we have saved the CSS file and HTML file at the same location, that is on the desktop. So we will directly provide the file name, okay, in a href, that is test.css, as you can see. So it doesn't need to give any path, as both are at the same location. So if they are at the different locations, then we have to specify the relative path or absolute path, whichever is convenient to you. So now our external CSS file is linked to our HTML document. So now we don't have any kind of CSS code within this. Okay, you can see simply we have a HTML file linked to the external CLS and the content of the HTML file. Again, now refresh the browser and see whether the same effect is available or not. I am going to refresh it. Okay, and just same effect, there is no change. Okay, nothing. That means our external CSS file is linked with the existing document and it works fine. It works fine without any problem. So again, what will happen? Now see here, we have created this CSS. Okay, for the testing purpose, we have used only 2 selectors, but there may be lots of we can say selectors having with different styling mechanism. And we just need, and we have a number of web pages in our websites. So what we need to do, we need to simply add on a single line of code, that is a link tag, to all the web pages. And the same effect will be available to all the web pages of our websites through the CSS. So we need to have a single CSS or 2 CSS, and that will be applied to all the web pages across the websites, and which will have a same look and feel and very attractive behavior, appearance of the website. So this is the power of CSS, using the CSS. Okay, so moving next is, after linking the CSS file to the HTML documents, there are various CSS units available in a, we can say, CSS that we can use to specify the value of a property. The CSS units are used to express the length, size of the value of the CSS property that we are specifying for a particular element. There are several CSS properties that accept the value as a length, such as height, width, margin, padding, etc. We can see there's various units are available. One is the centimeters. It expresses the length in centimeters, millimeters in a millimeter, specified by mm, inch is specified by inch, in, pixels will be specified by px, points will be specified by pt, and picas will be specified by pc. A length is a number that can be the value of any CSS property followed by the units. There are basically 2 types of lengths units which are given below: absolute length in CSS and relative length in CSS. Absolute length defines a fixed length units, while relative length specifies the responsive website. That means these lengths are used only the responsive websites. Absolutely. Thank you, friends. In this session, we have learnt what is CSS, benefits of CSS, how to write CSS using this syntax. Then after we have learnt the CSS rules to use and write the selectors in our CSS file. Then after we have discussed various types of CSS files. It may be an inline CSS, it may be an internal CSS, or it may be an external CSS, and the power of using each types of CSS. At last we have discussed various CSS units used to express the values of properties. Thank you very much.